Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back once again to Today in African History with Baba Shaka. I'm Baba Shaka, and today is April 22nd, 2021. Ramadan Mubarak to all of my Muslim brothers and sisters around the world who are observing the fast during this blessed month of Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your fast, reward your good deeds, and wipe away your misdeeds, inshallah. It was on this date, April 22nd, 1950, that the man who was considered the architect of the civil rights strategy that led to the U.S. Supreme Court's 1954 decision, Brown versus the Board of Education, became an ancestor. He was also a mentor to Thurgood Marshall, who successfully litigated the pivotal Brown case. Charles Hamilton Houston was born on September 3rd, 1895 in Washington, D.C. to parents William Houston, an attorney, and Mary Houston, a hairdresser and seamstress. He attended the M Street High School, which is later known as Dunbar High School in Washington, D.C. And following graduation, he enrolled at Amherst College in Massachusetts, where he was the only black student in his class. Mr. Houston was elected to Phi Beta Kappa, the National Honor Society, and upon graduation in 1915, he was selected to deliver that year's valedictory address. Now, after graduating from Amherst, Mr. Houston returned to Washington, and he later joined the U.S. Army in 1917 and trained at the all-black officers training camp at Fort Des Moines, Iowa in 1917. Mr. Houston was later deployed to France, and while there, he and his fellow black soldiers experienced racial discrimination, not from the French, but from the American soldiers, and this just deepened his resolve to study law. Following his military discharge in 1919, the year of the Red Summer, Mr. Houston entered Harvard Law School. He excelled in his studies and became the first black editor of the Harvard Law Review. And as a law student, Mr. Houston was mentored by future Supreme Court Justice Felix Frankfurter. In 1922, as Mr. Houston graduated with high honors, future Justice Frankfurter nominated him for the prestigious Frederick Sheldon Fellowship, which allowed him to study law at the University of Madrid. And now, upon his return from Spain in 1924, Mr. Houston practiced law with his father, William, at Houston and Houston, and began teaching in Howard University's Law Evening Program. Eventually, he became dean of the Howard University Law School. Now, Mr. Houston's legal accomplishments eventually captured the attention of Walter White, the chief executive to the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or the NAACP. And in 1935, Mr. Houston was hired as special counsel to the association. Eventually, he brought Thurgood Marshall, one of his Howard University law students, into the NAACP. The pair traveled throughout the South in the early 1930s and noted the inequalities of black school facilities. In response, they developed a legal strategy which challenged school segregation, first calling for the equalization of facilities for black students, and then eventually calling for full integration. Mr. Houston and Mr. Marshall first applied their strategy in 1935 when they took the Pearson versus Murray case, one of the first challenges to racial exclusion in public universities. See, Donald Gaines Murray, an Amherst graduate, was denied admission to the University of Maryland School of Law on the basis of his race. And it's ironic that Thurgood Marshall himself, a graduate of Lincoln University, Pennsylvania, and a resident of Baltimore, was also denied admission to Maryland University School of Law because of race. So Mr. Houston and Mr. Marshall successfully argued that the state had violated Mr. Murray's rights by failing to provide an adequate law school for his studies while denying him admission to the sole state law school on the grounds of race. So Mr. Houston continued to work with Mr. Marshall for the next 15 years, laying the groundwork for the eventual Brown decision. And Charles Hamilton Houston, a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, became an ancestor on April 22nd, 1950 in Washington, D.C. at the early age of 54. just 4 years before the Supreme Court handed down the fateful decision that he had spent a lifetime planning and pursuing. Right? Well, I'm dedicating this video to my younger brother, Jeffrey Nolan Adams, who himself joined the ancestors on this date, 18 years ago, in 2003. May Allah reward him for his good deeds, forgive him his misdeeds, and place a light in his grave, inshallah. Now, today's shirt is by Cathy Kwami. Her creations are marketed by her husband, Percy Kwami. I'll put their information down in the comment section so that you can contact them or even stop by and see their collection personally. To those of you who have subscribed to this channel, we thank you and thank you again. To those of you who have not yet subscribed, we invite you to hit that subscribe button and join us on this journey of producing these daily lessons. Your support is greatly needed. Please like and leave a comment down in the comment section. But most importantly, please share, especially with the young amongst us. A major shout out to my producer, Ms. Afor Gwandua, who makes these videos do what they do. So until tomorrow, inshallah, this is Baba Shaka with Today in African History. Masalam.